Hi, I'm Nikki. I am a music industry executive because often I don't know what else to call myself, but essentially my experience is in A&R and marketing. I've worked for those lovely companies that are written up there, but recently in the last year, I've been very lucky to be included on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, and that, thank you, and that comes off the back of essentially just the work I've done so far. I'm not going to bore you with the accolades. Feel free to look me up online. But I think the most important thing to know now is that my sort of focus is on helping independent artists to try and have actually sustainable careers. So in the spirit of that, when I was asked to give the solo talk, I was like, what are the 3 things that I would want to know if I was in your position? And it is these 3 lovely things here. So what is modern A&R? Everyone knows what traditional A&R is, but what is it actually now? And what deals are out there for you today? Why are we talking about superfans? I was saying to Sam earlier, literally the phrase superfans I've heard 100 times over, and I will probably hear it another 100 times over, but why is that important and how you guys can build community? And then finally, how best to spend your grant money or whatever budget you have as an independent artist, because we know people don't have huge buckets of money, so spending that well is really important. So first on modern A&R and deals. So A&R today and how can I get industry interest? It's one of the biggest things I get asked. So traditionally, we all kind of know what an A&R did in the movies, but nowadays, if you want to get assigned to any type of deal, it requires you to get buy-in from someone. They might not be called an A&R, they might be called something else nowadays, but you do need that buy-in. And this person has 2 goals: find good music and find music that's actually going to make revenue, because that's what they're being held to account on. They look at a mixture of sort of qualitative stuff. So is the music good? Does this person perform well? And a mixture of sort of strategy and data. And I put a lovely list here because it is the thing I get asked quite a lot, but what are they actually looking for? So specifically social media growth and engagement, not just how many followers you have, but how many people are actually engaging. Your conversion from social media to fan ownership. So that's people giving you their email, giving you their number. Music quality, your positioning, how quickly you can make the music, because churning it out is quite important. Who's on your team, what highlights you have today, if any. That can be as big or as small as you like, but you will have some highlights. Revenue, if any, especially if the deal involves you having to recoup any of that funding that they're giving you as a company. And then work ethic and personality is quite a big one because they'll be working with you quite closely. And I did a bit of a breakdown on all of the different types of deals out there. Obviously, this really differs from the grant that Amplify are doing. That is obviously not recoupable, but there are tons of deals out there with companies that are. There are also deals which don't involve funding as well. So you would have heard of like the TuneCores, DistroKids, etc., and what you can do with them. And most people would have heard of a record deal as well. So typically 50-50 if you're independent, 80-20 if you're with a major label. But people tend not to know about the 2 sort of options in the middle. So that's like distribution plus and artist services. They are not record deals, but they get you a lot of the things that people want from record deals. So funding, partially a team, sometimes a full team if you're on the artist services deal. But I've put there some examples of how they sort of differ. So they'd be taking a 20 to 30% of your revenue on a Distro Plus deal, typically on a 3-year term. And you might get some funding, you might get someone as a sort of account manager and a couple of extra services, but not a full team. Whereas with artist services, you're giving away a bit more, so more like 30 to 45%, just shy of an independent record deal. But you are getting an advance, a marketing budget, and quite a few more people in terms of who's working on your project. And I mean, what's right for you and what you can access will really depend on where you're at in your career, and also your aspirations, because some people might have a really successful career and be on a Distro Plus deal. It doesn't necessarily mean the lower down is better. It's just purely worth knowing what is out there. And like I said, I've put some examples of companies, so you know the types of companies you can reach out to get these various different deals. Then second most important thing I think you guys should know, why is everyone talking about superfans? If you haven't heard about superfans, definitely get to know about it, because it is literally the thing which everyone's talking about this year. But how you build community, which as an artist is your leverage, it is your power, apart from obviously your creativity and the music itself. I've put this lovely, helpful table over here, which just divides out, we all know what a fan is, but there's passive fans, super fans. The main difference here, all you need to know is a passive fan is someone who does consume your content and music, but with minimal financial contribution. So they might just stream you now and then. They'll probably move on quite quickly. They're listening to loads of other people, and they probably don't share your music that much. They might do now and then. Whereas a super fan is the type of person who's buying the merch, buying your tickets, coming to events, sharing stuff you're doing, so being an advocate for your work and supporting you sort of through the long term. So unsurprisingly, you can see from this lovely chart over here, they're worth a lot more in terms of how much you guys can make. This is all an average, obviously, but the main thing you need to know here is a super fan roughly can be worth 10 to 100 times more than a passive fan over their lifetime, so over the time that they are a fan of yours. You can see annually roughly $50 to $200 plus. Lifetime value 500 to 2,000, and they also help to convert other people. But the really interesting thing is what I put right at the bottom, which is for 5 super fans, essentially you're making the same as 250 passive fans. So what does that tell me? For me personally as an artist, that would take a lot of the stress away of going, I don't need a billion people to really care about what I'm doing, although that would be nice. I just need a handful of people who really care about what I'm doing, and then that tends to trickle out because financially they're going to make you way more, and that is purely looking at like how much you make off streaming versus just how much a t-shirt costs. So it's quite easy to see that difference. So yeah, that tells you that building community is key. And I thought that at this point, I would be thinking, okay, that's all great. You know, I get that that's more valuable, but what can I actually do to make these people super fans? So I've put 3 quick sort of tips over there on how to convert people into being super fans. So engaging directly with them, especially in the early days, you know, having people really early on sign up to your newsletter, come to fan-only events, giving them personalized content or something that's a little bit special. Offer exclusivity. That can be done through like having them in a WhatsApp group, having little private meetups with them. It's something like Fred again did a lot, for example, with the meetups in Hyde Park on the, they're not called Boris bikes anymore, but this, whatever they're called now, the various different bikes, Lime bikes, thank you. But that was a really prime example of like having a special meetup with people. It's a random thing you do with your friends, but he was there blasting his songs, driving around Hyde Park. And then the last one feeds into what I just said. So literally, I mean, getting people on WhatsApp groups, Instagram groups. You can do that really easily on Instagram with broadcast groups. Now it costs you nothing. So these are all also free things you can really do apart from maybe how much it would cost you to physically get somewhere to meet up with people. It just takes effort more than money. And then finally, how best to spend your grant money or any money whatsoever that you have. I've put the 6 things that people tend to mention the most. The first being obviously recording and making content. I wrote short form here because it's obviously what's performing the best at the moment, but that can be any type of content. So yes, I do think you should spend money on that, particularly on recording and making sure your music is the best quality it can be. Same for content as well, but you don't need to spend a crazy amount of money on this. Like some of the best social media ideas or content ideas I've seen have been really inexpensive. There was the viral one of a dude literally stood with his guitar in like one of the red telephone booths, and he didn't move for the entire song. He just edited the background the entire time. Some of you might have seen that because it's a video that went viral. How much could that have cost him? I mean, probably not much. He literally set up his camera. He just had some editing skills, which made it a really, really good video. So definitely on recording and getting some content together, I think that should definitely be part of your budget because that is your product. At the end of the day, if the product's really good, then it's partially going to sell itself. Social media ads, I always tell people to hold off until, so it is something you should spend money on, but until you know what's performing well organically. So if you've just made a TikTok, don't go and spend all of your money on pushing your content out, because then it's skewing the data for you. If you're posting regularly, consistently, it's market research. So you can see what's doing well. You can see which posts are doing better than others and kind of try and analyze why. And from that point, you can go, okay, posts 4, 5, and 6 have done loads better. They've organically sort of like taken a life of their own and got to as far as they're kind of going to get organically. Now might be the right time to boost it and just add that little bit more. So yes, but hold off because you don't want to lose that really valuable data. Then direct-to-fan tools, I put one example there, but there's tons of other tools you can look at. So those are tools which help you convert people from being a social media follower to actually giving you their number or their email, so you can try and convert them to being a super fan. A lot of them function as like links in bios or different links that people can sort of like sign up to essentially collect people's numbers and emails. Then third-party playlisting. I wrote often a no, sometimes a maybe. It's something that people do spend money on sometimes. So like playlist pitching stuff, a lot of people have been really burnt by this. I think people nod. You're not the only ones who've been burnt by it. A lot of people have. But a lot of playlists have bot followers. It's something that's really openly known now. There's been a lot of controversy. There's also some playlists which have real followers and they're fantastic. But how do you know which is which? That is the whole problem. We don't. It's really hard unless you have the data from the playlist and you can see the location, the listening patterns and all of that. Usually as an artist, you can only see that when it's too late because you've landed on one of those playlists and your locations and listening patterns are completely skewed. And now some DSPs are actually even taking down tracks that have been on playlists like this, so it could really negatively affect you. So that's why I say often a no, it's not the first thing I kind of go to, but playlisting is good. And obviously all official playlists are not bad playlists. So if it's a Spotify playlist, it's fine. But if it's a third party one, so one made by an external company, it's just worth sort of like looking into it a bit and trying to do your research to work out whether it is a legitimate playlist or not, because you do want that as part of your strategy, but you just want to go for the high quality ones. Then live events, busking, and in real life engagement. It is genre dependent and dependent on where you are as an artist in your career. But for me, it's a big yes if done smartly, because I think it's one of the best ways to convert people to super fans. And what you don't want to happen is to be one of the like TikTok signings of 2023 who got a big record deal and then immediately got dropped after they couldn't bring down 5 to 10 people to a gig. Had a really big following, so they were definitely influencers, and that is admirable in itself, but very much didn't have a live career whatsoever, and it is something you kind of, I guess you need if you really want to be a live touring artist, because a lot of money is made in touring. But I also wrote in real life engagement because it doesn't necessarily need to be a gig. It could be like one of these guerrilla marketing type things as well, but just connecting with your fans in real life. And then PR and radio, which is one of my biggest sticklers, and another thing that people, by people I mean artists, spend a lot of money on and don't always get the best results from. Again, there's some great PR and radio companies, but there are also a lot who, I mean, everyone charges a lot in PR and radio. It's very expensive, but who essentially, you know, you could sign up to PR and radio way too early in your career, which would mean that the money doesn't actually help you. So I wrote, it can wait. It's something I would do a little bit later on. And that is it. That is me. If you want to ask me any questions, please do.